We begin the press conference by the Prime Minister of Japan. First of all, I'd like to hear what the Prime Minister has to say to us. Floor is yours, Prime Minister. Yes. 150 days Diet session is coming to an end for 2 days to go till the end. In this ordinary Diet session, let me look back a little bit and let me say that when we think about the government running going forward, let me say a few words. In the Diet session, our party's political funds issues have raised the various issues and causing the distrust of the politics, and this has become the largest contentious points in the Diet session. Back in 1993, I was elected as the lawmaker for the first time. As a politician, the very first challenge I had to face, is a political reform discussion in Heisei era. That was the very first issue I had to face. Conventionally, as far as the political reform is concerned, I have some passion towards it. That's how I worked on it. Now, being the president of the Liberal Democratic Party, I had to be face-to-face with this issue. I had to be ready, and at the turn of the initial day of the year, we set up the reform headquarters, and over 6 months, a series of days, I was able to show the various countermeasures, and I had prompted the necessary action to be taken. Every now and then, I had to face some walls and barriers and hurdles, but in so doing, I had to step ahead. That's how I committed to disband the faction, and also I was committed to attend political reform headquarters. As a big challenge, that was political funds related system, and the trust for the system need to be elevated, and the foundation for democracy has to be more robust. That's what I wanted to do. So our sense of responsibility has to be bigger. So the public disclosure standards amount need to be lowered for anyone who had bought the party vouchers, and also political funds control acts had to be revised, and that was something I was able to realize this time. But on the other hand, the prevention of the recurrence has to be done, and also political funds transparency need to be higher. But at the same time, infrastructure for democracy, that is, political funds, that need to be secured at the same time. These are the two things I have to take a good balance. It was a very difficult job to do, but each party, each faction discussion has been done in a very sincere manner. I would like to really appreciate for that efforts. There are various items to be discussed, and policy activities fund that needs to have a higher transparency. We need to set up a third-party institutions, and as far as those matters are concerned, we have to substantiate what's in those items as soon as possible. There is no end of the political reform. Election system and how the discussion should be in the Diet session. The discussion or challenge or mounting ahead of us. Within the party, there are intensive discussion, and each faction, each party, we continue to have sincere discussions with them so that we would like to protect democracy and general public. Intermittently, we would like to work on these efforts. Political reform garners attention from media. But in this ordinary Diet session, child rallying support system has to be ramped up by the reform, and also the constitution of the agriculture and agricultural basic acts had to be revised, and also the cabinet submitted the 62 bills, and exception of the one bill, all the bills were enacted, and we are able to make so much progress this time. For all the stakeholders involved, I'd like to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. In 2024, there was an earthquake in Noto Peninsula. We have to there was an earthquake over the peninsula, and we are doing best of our ability to reconstruct, revitalize the area. In the Diet session, very sincere, intensive discussion took place, but on the ground, that we have to demolify the houses, we have to recover water services. There are so many challenges mounting ahead of them. The formulating budget and also responses by each ministry and agency, not only that, but all the Kasumi Gaseki has to come as a one team to accelerate the revitalization, reconstruction. That is the organization that is necessary. Ishikawa Prefecture, the creative reconstruction policy, and based on which we continue to work closely with villages and the local governments to accelerate these reconstruction efforts in a full-fledged manner, and cross-sectional ministry agencies reconstruction support headquarters will be set up. There will be station staff of the 100 or more. We are able to expand that, and the creative reconstruction task force. That is a new organization we are going to set up, and on the 1st of July, the organization will set off the operation. We would like to have a meticulous support for the people affected in the region.
In addition, as to the next potential large disaster, the medical social benefit and welfare will be enhanced, and self-defense force and fire department, where the initial actions will have more cooperative cooperation closely, and including the cabinet office, we are going to enforce the structure and organization for counter-measuring the disaster. So to that end, we are going to put together the measures as soon as possible. Next, the largest interest by public, that is the wage, commodity price, as well as the income for the last 30 years. Low commodity price, low income, and low growth rate that we suffered, we are going to break away from there in order to transit into a new form of the economy. Currently, the Japanese economy is facing the turning point and challenging critical point. We see that there is a silver lining of the transition. First of all, let me talk about the wage. More than 5% through the labor offense negotiation, there is a strong wage negotiation, and that impact is showing. In May, 40% of the wage hike, in June 60%, on July 80%, where the wage hike will be reflected for the fall period on a step-by-step basis. I do believe that the people will feel that there is a hike in wage in real term. With respect to capex, it is the highest number in history. Corporate restructure has been raising a good reputation in and out of Japan. And semiconductor storage, batteries, data center, a large-sized capex from overseas is recognized in a series of manner. First of all, this transition of economy will become a big flow. And to that end, we are going to implement multifaceted countermeasures. Specifically speaking, starting from June, there will be fixed sum income tax reduction implemented, and it would be exceeding the commodity price hike for wage hike to be done, and it would play a big role to support the Japanese people. And for the nursing and the medical and nursery, as well as the public areas, in order to proliferate wage hike, the government Japan is going to provide all-out follow-up effort for those SMEs where earnings power or GX, where investment will be needed to promote that. We are going to expand our support. On the other hand, when it comes to the commodity price level, where we see there is remains at a high level, but those people with the pension and those SMEs, they are not able to implement wage hike reform. They are facing a very challenging situation. There could be some potential people where they will be left behind. Therefore, it is needed to provide a very meticulous support. To that end, we have two-story type of the support and effort. The first approach is that is quick win measurement, and the second one, it is expected to implement in the fall. It's part of the economic policy. We are going to make a supporting countermeasures as to the first approach. The local economy, as well as those low-income people, we will provide energy-based subsidies as soon as possible. As for the deregulating for the fuel and oil prices, we will continue up until the end of this year. With respect to severe summer, in order to survive severe summer, we will provide the subsidy for emergency support to overcome severe summer. Now we are going to provide some subsidies and grants for the utilities, including the water, as soon as possible. We are going to work together with the opposition parties.
But by the end of the year, the consumer price index can be lowered. Compared to what there was no system, then 0.5 percentage points or over, that should be the figure that we have to have, and towards that end, we would like to continue to consider those matters. Now, in the second phase measures, for pension beneficiaries and low-income earners and the regional economy, these are some of the things we would like to continue to laser focus, and we would like to have drastic efforts for them. To be more specific, pricing inflation is something in mind. The food cost is going up, and especially that puts the people with the pension or the low income earners at a very difficult spot. So the benefits form, we would like to continue to support them. And also school meals fee. That burden has to be lower for parents. And also other the dairy farmers and the agriculture and fisheries and SMEs, and also nursing care and child care, and also school facilities, and also the public bathing facilities and regional transportation, and also regional logistics, and the regional sightseeing or tourism. And these are some of the things we would like to continue to support in a wide spectrum way against the pricing inflation. And the regional grants will be expanded so that we are able to give and deliver meticulous support. And these are some of the things we continue to think about on the table. And the gasoline, power bills, subsidies for that is in the context of the decarbonization. That might run anti-current against the what's going on around the world. It's not something that we should continue for long. But as I said a minute ago, there are people or groups of people or regional economy who have to face with the pricing inflation. We have to stand by them. And we have to have an instant effect of energy support. For this time only, we're going to give support for them. These measures are necessary. Why these measures are needed in the first place is that the energy structure in Japan, there is a vulnerability around it. Investment need to be more vigorized, and domestic economy need to be promoted, and our lives need to be enriched further. To do that, our energy structure vulnerability need to be corrected, need to be overcome. So stable, affordable energy need to be secured. That's something we have to do. Nuclear power stations started to be reoperated again in some regions, or some regions that where we don't really see any reoperation of the nuclear power station, then approximately 30% of the power rates are a difference we are seeing in some regions. That any nuclear power station we are able to confirm the safety, we have to reoperate them again as soon as possible. And the next generational reactor need to be developed and also commercialized, and perovskite and hydrogen and offshore wind, and those are the decarbonized power base are something we have to allure investment. These are some of the things we continue to think about as soon as possible. Some point within a year, energy supply and also industrial structures and also industrial locations, and these are some of the things we have to put in perspective of within the national strategy. The United States presidential election is coming. The United Kingdom and France, over the next months, elections are coming. Ukraine, Middle East, there are some affairs going on, and international affairs are seeing more uncertainties around us. The peace of Japan and lives and assets of general public need to be protected throughout. To do that, deterrence need to be enforced further, reinforced further, and there are some principles any country should follow, and the fundamental values have to be taken over for next generations. That is a strong commitment we have. After July, NATO summit is coming, and Pacific Island countries, the leaders are coming to Palm 10, and Asia 5 countries and Japan are going to have a first summit. These are a very important diplomatic schedule is awaiting. G20, ASEAN, APEC. These are a series of these summits had to be prepared at the same time. So we continue to have a sense of urgency to go ahead with the national security and also diplomacy.
In addition, for the abductees' families, while they are aging, while that is in the development, the abduction issue is a time-limited issue. Therefore, that is a human rights issue. For all the abductees, we hope that for them to return as soon as possible, and we will work with the ironclad determination. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the constitutional amendment from the Prime Minister's perspective as to the details and how it is worked on over the constitutional amendment. I have been refraining from talking directly, however, from the president of the LDP perspective. There is a review committee at LDP for constitutional revision item for some of the articles we were able to agree. So I do believe that this is a very important step forward. The day before yesterday, we had the party leaders discussion at CDP. We proposed that to accelerate for the amendment to the Constitution. However, it is very regrettable we were not able to gain understanding and agreement. But we would like to move forward this important issue, moving ahead. The basic law as to the constitutions, we need to accommodate the area's needs and to propose this to the public. I do believe this is the responsibility of the policy makers. I wanted to highlight this, and this concludes my speech.
Now we're going to take questions from the floor. If you're given the go, please state your name and affiliations and approach to the closest mic, and please limit your question to one. First of all, leading media outlet, TBS. Go ahead.
TBS 川西と申します。
Kawanishi, TBS. Thank you, Prime Minister. Let me ask you questions on the very initial statement. The largest focus was the Political Refunds Control Act's revisement. And there are things we have to discuss, including the third-party institutions, and also there are some of the issues we have to make. are you going to make some conclusions while you were Prime Minister? And also you mentioned the Constitution amendment. The Diet session will be closed. And when we think about it, within that term as a Prime Minister, it will be very challenging, very much challenging. But is it possible that the lawmakers can propose or submit as bills? Is it possible? And going back to pricing inflation, the financial source, how do you think about it? Especially towards autumn, economic measures and policies will be doled out. Are you going to be the one who are going to formulate and compile the supplementary budget? Okay, let me first mention Political Funds Control Acts. That's the first question you asked. Because of this amendment or revision, the prevention of the recurrence that is directly connected to this amendment this time, and that has to be effective. And very substantiated measures were demonstrated this time, I believe. And on top of it, political funds is the basics and fundamentals for democracy. And that trust, its trust, need to be secured. So various initiatives were included in the revision. And third-party institutions. And these are the things we had to address, yes. But as far as those issues are concerned, the ground policy, meaning what exactly we're going to do, we would like to do, that has to be, that was articulated, I think, among which there are challenges we have to address. In a statement, I was committed, but policy activity funds and how much and how far they use, that has to be disclosed. The data by enforcement. By the January 1st, 2026, we tried to get the content and answer and solution, and towards which we tried to have discussions. And also, third-party institution, that's another thing you asked. Again, by the January 1st, 2026, we will continue to discuss this matter. That's a timeline. That's one thing I mentioned too. So the details of these policy need to be concluded. And to your second question of the amendment of the Constitution. As far as the amendment of the Constitution is concerned, as I mentioned many times, since its enforcement, it's been 77 years, and also Research Commission on the Constitution was founded, and also discussion started for 13 years already. But the proposal of the amendment was never done, and that situation continued ever since I took office. That there was a research commission on the Constitution between the lower house and upper house. There were very intensive discussions I promoted, and I believe there are people who are working on these discussions. And actually, 13th of this month, the lower house research commission on the Constitution and the LDPs, that the head or representative actually demonstrated skeleton of the things that has to be included in the draft of the amendment of the Constitution over the clauses, and actually we are able to gain the consensus from the 5 factions. As the president of the Liberal Democratic Party, in that capacity, let me say that these moves and these developments are a very important first step, I think. We have to make progress on this Constitution amendment, and based on the policies we have in our party, we would like to continue to tenaciously work on this issue. Now, at the Research Commission on the Constitution, even after we close the Diet session, we continue to sound out discussions. I'm aware these initiatives have been underway even now. We continue to do to our best of our ability. to fulfill the responsibility in our politics. We continue to uphold this stance. So, we have to make a progress, even a one step forward on the Constitution amendment. Now, let me switch gear to the pricing countermeasures. As I said, there are a two-phased approach, and those economic policies or measures will be doled out. First of all, as a first phase approach, I mentioned the details in a speech. The ruling parties and ourselves continue to work together. And pension beneficiaries or pricing pressures were very much difficult for SMEs, and those are the people with K-hold that we continue to support, and that's included in a second phased approach. The specific financial sources, fiscal source, will be fixed while we're having discussion on the second phase approach. But as of right now, we recognize that there has to be two-phase approach.
続きまして、
Next, Kaguya. 毎日 newspaper. Kageyama from 毎日 newspaper. I would like to ask a question. Given the discussion you had from the summer to fall, I think you mentioned visiting to overseas. In September, it is expected to have the LDP presidential election. Are you going to run for being re-elected? Or before this election, are you going to reshuffle the cabinet or a dissolution of the lower house as well as the general election? So you discussed over this reshuffling and dissolution. As I mentioned before, there are issues that we can't postpone. And also I mentioned earlier how to regain trust. In addition to that, disaster-afflicted areas where we need to provide support for recovery. The other one is the economic-driven growth needs to be carried out to that, and we have to have the economic countermeasures. In addition to that, under this uncertain international landscape, we have to focus on those issues. This is for what I'm thinking is to work on those issues. Given your discussion, there are issues we are not able to defer, we have to address. And with our work, I need to produce outcome. Other than that, I'm not thinking anything at all. This is the current position that I hold now, and which I mentioned from the past, and no change to that stance.
Other than the leading media outlet, I'd like to take questions from the floor. Yomiuri Newspaper. Morifuji from Yomiuri Newspaper. Thank you. Going back to the previous question that somebody raised. Today, effectively, the ordinary diet session closed. As a prime minister or the president of your party, what are the things that are outstanding still, you think? And you didn't make clear whether or not you're going to run for the president, but what will be the credentials for the next president? What will be the quality we all need? Well, you asked the questions, what are the things that you haven't got done yet, but there are the things that has to have a way ahead. From that perspective, let me say several things. I mean, the order of what I'm going to discuss right now doesn't really matter, but the revitalization of economy, because 3 decades in the past, the low pricing, low wages, and low growth, and that deflationary economy that we have experienced over 3 decades, we have to exit from that. And whether or not we can actually transit to the growth type economy, whether or not we can do it or not, we are facing very critical situation. So that requires economic policy that continue to be conducted. And also the earthquake over Noto Peninsula, we have to make an effort, and reconstruction, revitalization have to be accelerated further. These are some challenges we have to work on. And also diplomacy, national security, and the leader's diplomacy. In that sense, diplomacy has to make an effort. That has to be backed by the deterrence or response capability. That policy has to make steps forward too. Needless to say, the political reform to regain trust, that's another thing. We are still in the way. And also constitution amendment. We have to do whatever we can. These are some of the challenges we have to overcome. And one more thing, as far as a presidential election is concerned, for our party, what credentials will be needed? I think that was a question you asked. Home and abroad, we are facing historical inflection point. On international society, there are the things that are observing inflection point of history. In Japan, sustainable economy society have to be maintained, and among which we are facing huge challenges. In those occasions, we are seeing a step change. And against those inflection point or these step change, we have to have a big picture, which is important, I think. At the same time, there are challenges we can't postpone any longer. We have to work on it. Meaning, there are some challenges or issues that we can't get to the conclusions yet in the past, and that continue to be postponed and deferred again and again and again. And that's the thing, that we have to deliver results and get to the conclusion. We have to judge what to do. Because it's difficult. Because it was difficult. There were discussions, hard discussions coming along, and obviously there were some objections coming along too. That has to come with a difficult, hard judgment. That requires us to be courageous, and we have to be committed to make a judgment. We have to be a good judge in those historical inflection points. So we have to be committed, and we have to be ready for that. I think that's important. That's how I all feel.
Nikkei? Akiyama from Nikkei. As to the nominal GDP here in Japan in 2024, it is expected to top 600 trillion yen. In 2015, as one of the new arrows by Abe administration, there was the target posted to achieve 600 trillion yen by 2020. Now it is in sight to achieve that number. As to the advocated by Kishida administration, you are saying that from the low interest rate and the low growth economy to a growth-based economy to be transited. Now you are targeting to raise the economic growth, and it means that increase of the nominal GDP. And this is a transitional economy. Do you have any specific timeline to achieve 600 trillion yen? According to the Kishida administration, when it comes to the wage hike and investment were mentioned, as to the overall economic measures, it was difficult to follow your explanation. In some cases, it's very much difficult to understand. As for the Japanese public, how the Japanese economy is moving forward, I would like to show from mid and long-term perspective for the direction. Would you please share with us whether or not you are going to set up any target for macroeconomy? This is the question over the GDP. In 2024, currently, from January to March period, nominal GDP hit the highest in the past, amounting to 598 trillion yen. As you said, that it is almost there to achieve 600 trillion yen. Now, as to the basic policy for this year, we are going to break away from deflation completely. And in order to transit to the growth-based economy, we shared the vision and strategy. After that, the public will feel well-being as well as the affluence. To that end, we showed some policy direction to achieve sustainable economic society. We have the 2% stable commodity target rise in around 2040 on a nominal basis. We think that it could be in sight. We'll be able to achieve 1,000 trillion yen economy. This was shared under the basic policy as we are going to go the sustainable and stable economy. However, what is important is the pathway to reach or to achieve that for this big target. First of all, in 2030, or I should say, in 2030s, the birth rate is going to be expedited. If we do not do anything at all, then the potential growth rate from the longer-term perspective, it could be falling into very much low. Therefore, we need to secure where we can grow over 1% on a stable basis. That is in real time. To that end, in 2030s or by 2030, where the acceleration of the population decline is expected. Therefore, this is the last opportunity to that end of working over the child-related policies. Now, if I may say, in 2030, by 2030, again, we think it is the last opportunity. What we are working on now is DX, GX. That is the expansion of investment. In addition to that, productivity increase like Western countries. In addition to that, the labor participation rate by aging persons are increasing. Therefore, we shall continue this rising pace. In addition to that, promotion of the regular employee of those females. So we need to sustainably implement these measures. That is important, I believe, by doing so. The wage hike and investment will drive for this growth-based economy. And income and growth will have a positive cycle. And growth and allocation or distribution will have a virtuous cycle. I do believe that that is very important. Throughout these measures, as I mentioned earlier, the major target that we set forth, so we would like to move forward our economy.
次の方。
Yamaguchi-san from AP.
AP の
This is Yamaguchi from AP. Thank you, Prime Minister. The optional family name, different family name. There were some issues of using the current system, and there were disadvantages for women. That has been actually the risk in a business for women. And there were some voices for improvement, and Keidan Ren has actually said so too. I mean, no marriage or the declining birth rate have been actually driven by those systems. So first of all, let me ask you, once your family, what? No, once your family name changes, for example, then what would you feel? What disadvantages do you think you have to suffer? Have you ever, by any chance, imagined what would happen to you? Or improvement of human rights situation, or the risk or disadvantages could be dissolved by this new potential new system. Some people say so. What would be the specific issues you think there is? And that is also in a function of how international society appreciates or assesses Japan. So how would you like to accelerate, speed up these initiatives? Thank you. Yes. Yes. Optional different surname system. As you said, Keidanren has voiced over that system. Yes, there was a proposal put forward. If you look into it, many financial institutions have said the issues over credit card issuance or opening bank accounts. In doing so, there were some issues. And double name system. If the double name is allowed, then that could raise the suspicions because that's never happened in international society or the countries abroad, and they're only available in Japan. And there are some proposals we are seeing, yes. And those voices are raised by the many people in many capacities. For example, there's some people who value houses for families, where some people want to protect their family name. So they want to introduce the system, and from the various perspectives, some people actually want the systems to go ahead. You asked me whether I have by any chance imagined what would happen to me, but at least there are some people who want this system. And yes, I have mulled over those issues in the past. And there are mixed opinions over this issue. There are positive voices, as I just introduced. Where is unity of family, or how we're going to raise kids with certain family name, and what are the happiness and what are the interests for kids? There are some group of people who think about that as an issue. And those people tend to have a negative opinions. So yes, Keidanren has voiced over this issue from the business perspective, and they raise an issue as an important point. But there are many kinds of people in diversified perspective, and this system could have potentially huge impact on those people's opinions. And we are hearing opinions from those people in wide spectrum. An opinions poll, like the recent opinion polls of of 2021, there are mixed opinions. Should we have a same family name? That is 27% people say so. And there are some of the people, like 42%, who are saying that we should have the same family name, and also we have to be allowed to use the former name. And another 28% voices different opinions too. So with the ruling by the Supreme Court, this issue has to be discussed and fixed and decided in the Diet. So constructive discussion has to be built in the Diet session. That is an important point. And realistically, there are some people who are in difficulty because of these issues. So against this, how we're going to face this from political perspective, and we should deepen discussion as far to revise the law, and going ahead with discussion is important. But when we think about the reality, responses for very specific disadvantages, that's another thing we have to think about. So going back to the proposal put forward by Ren, that property registrations has a former name at the same time, together with a new family name. And in so doing, there were some disadvantages for some people, for certain people. And the 1st of April, starting this year, that was allowed to do it this year. That's another initiative we are actually starting. So again, specific needs, the responses has to be made. That's something we have to do. And at the same time, we have to deepen discussion over the issue. And I believe this issue requires us to make an effort further.
平本さん。
Hiramoto from Nippon TV. I would like to ask the political funding as to the your evaluation of the revision to the political funding control law, and you said that it is effective. With respect to this revision to this law, what is the evaluation by the public? What is your perception on that? The largest target setting is to regain trust from the public. This simply put, with respect to this reform of political body, do you think that you are able to regain trust from the public? As to your question, as I mentioned earlier, there is no end as to the political reform. As for this political reform, the amendment to laws and regulations were mentioned, so the law to be amended. As to the path moving to this end, we had a deeper reflection that we reached to this point, and criminal penalty or criminal responsibility was imposed. What is expected by the public for the lawmakers, responsibility should be in place. So from the responsibility perspective of the lawmakers, we do have a sense of responsibility. To that end, we decided to revise the political fund control law. There are different initiatives that we did, and this is one of the big steps. But with respect to this amendment to this law, I believe that there is the public has not thoroughly have a good evaluation, and I said earlier, for those issues that we need to continuously work on, I would like to come up with the outcome more than ever. For those lawmakers who are utilizing such laws, need to revisit them if they had exercised some established right, and behavior and stance should well demonstrating their responsibility. The issue of the political fund, that is the discussion over the cost of the democracy, why the cost is incurring as to the political activities. And this discussion over the election campaigns or various issues related to politics, where we need to move forward discussions, the path to regain trust from the public. As I said earlier, it is not fully completed yet on a continuous basis in a reserved manner, and also we have to take seriously to discuss.
恐縮ですが、
I'm afraid, because of time constraints, I'll limit questions to 2. Kaok Shimpo. Koga from Kaok Shimpo, thank you. The regional revitalization has been worked on for 10 years. Still, there are concentration to Tokyo metropolitan area, and there has been more accelerated rather than declining. How do you analyze this, and how do you see it? And over the next 1 decade, what are the policy has to be prioritized first? Thank you. Well, regional revitalization effort is, yes, as you said, today there are various initiatives that we have put forward. But at the same time, Japanese society has been changing. And till today, looking back the results, looking at the reality, there was some concentration to Tokyo. That continues. Meaning there was no enough results that we wanted to see. We have to take it seriously. While saying so, what kind of policies we should work on? You asked that point. Well, first of all, let me say that declining population is one thing. After 2030, that will be sped up. So that's a situation we have to keep in mind. And then at the same time, we have to work on regional revitalization. Meaning the child and child rearing support itself that need to be enriched and expanded. That's why acceleration plan was formulated of the 6.3 trillion yen will be doled out with the drastic policy, and the relevant bills were enacted. Those economic support will be one thing. Yes, we have to reinforce, obviously, but we have to deliver results, and for that end, awareness of society and corporate culture, these are awareness of general public that has to come into play, I think. And we have had discussion too. The child and child rearing support is one thing, and also, as I mentioned many times, economic revitalization. That has to be in function of the regional revitalization. For the first time in 30 years, exiting from deflation, we are seeing the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity right now. The new stage of economy, that's the stage we have to continue to sit on and go ahead, and also even under declining population state, the productivity has to be better, and also we have to have a more labor forces coming to the marketplace so that sustainable society and economy have to be created. And from the regional revitalization perspective, that's an important effort. And if you laser focus on the regions, now there are excessive moving into Tokyo. If you look into it, the young people, especially women, wanted to have jobs, wanted to go to universities, and that's why they're coming to Tokyo. That has caused this issue, and the situation never stops. When we think about it, the workplaces or the learning places have to be created, needless to say. But at the same time, we have to create an environment where the women feel easier to raise kids in those regional economy, which is important too. And the new form of capitalism and the vision for a digital garden city nation, under those discussions, we discussed the domestic investment so that we are able to create jobs in regions, and also regional universities and regional high schools term need to be better. And also, we have to create an environment where people feel easier to get married and have babies for child rearing, and also teleworking. And those are the issues are all important, and we have had discussions so far. Looking back what we have done in the past, because we are having those discussions, we can make ahead and go ahead with the regional revitalization in our times.
岩さん。
Kishida from TV, Asahi TV Broadcasting. I have been watching the diet session over the last 1 week, like today, looking at your expression as well as how you talk. Looks like you are so much tired, looking so tired. Are you tired and feel fatigue, or you're energetic? If that is the case, what is the reason you're so energetic? 3 years for 1 term, while you're going to pass that term over the last 3 years and less. Looking back, if you were to score yourself, your performance, what is the score? If you were to put your score for the past 3 years of your performance, if you were to give a score for yourself on your performance, well, whether or not I am so tired or not, or during it one day, if you think that I look so tired, this is my fault. I am so energetic. I am so motivated and energetic, and which I would like to demonstrate to you all moving forward as well. I am not tired at all, and so I have no intention to say that I am tired. In addition to that, for the past 3 years or 2.5 years plus, while I was taking this position, how do I evaluate myself on my performance? With respect to evaluation, if it would end now, maybe I could give some scores for my evaluation. But again, I'm not fully reached to the end point. There are so many issues that I can't defer at all. Therefore, by leading to the outcome, it would create an evaluation, an assessment on a continuous basis. Those issues which are not solved yet, I would like to make effort in order to create a positive outcome, even though it is 1 or 2 issues to solve. At the moment, whether or not I am going to give a score or evaluation, again, given the nature of issues that we face, I think it is too premature to give a performance evaluation. This concludes today's press conference with the Prime Minister. For those people who are raising hands now, would you please send email to the respective contact point. Thank you very much for your participation today.
はい、ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much.